Hello, and welcome back to a special edition of the Blades and Banter. This is a summer series covering all different types of skating news. Today I'm coming to you live from Russia, where out of Moscow we have big news that RIA Sports has reported that former silver medalist at the Russian National Championships in 2024, as well as a junior Grand Prix final champion and silver medalist, Sofia Morva, has announced to the Russian Federation that she wishes to be expelled from the national team. Additionally, Muravieva announced last week on May 6th that she would be leaving her coach, Alexei Mishin. Muravieva worked with Alexei Mishin this past season and was able to finish 5th at the Russian Nationals. Prior to that, Muravieva had worked with a long-time relationship with coach Yevgeny Plashenko. Prior to the Russian ban, Muravieva had a successful career on the Junior Grand Prix circuit, taking home a gold and silver, beating famed international skaters Nina Petrokina, Isabel Levito, Cheon Kim, and also beating our domestic rival Adelia Petrosian. In Russia, Muravieva is seen as the combination of both artistry and technique, being able to successfully complete triple axel jumps while also having correct edges on her triple flip and triple lutz combinations. This combination has made Muravieva very successful and a fan favorite amongst Russian fans. Since Muravieva has announced this change, there has been a lot of speculation among figure skating reporters as well as the figure skating fans on which country and federation Muravieva will decide to represent. Two of the leading contenders at the current moment are the United States and France, Muravieva having connections to both in various ways. For France, she's repeatedly worked with French choreographer Benoit Rochot, as well as attended some of his peak ice camps that take place in Italy and France throughout the seasons. And with the US, Muravieva has declared that she's wanted to work in the past with Rafael Aratunian, who resides in Irvine, California. When talking about why Sofia Morva would consider the change to France or to the United States from Russia, there are a lot of factors that come into play at this current situation. Right now, you have to look at the competition that is going on within Russia. Muravieva, the past couple of seasons, has finished 4th, just off the podium at the Russian National Championships, and has kind of lost her triple axel in competition. It hasn't been there, and it hasn't been improving as the time has gone on. With the competition in Russia, a lot of these junior women are being able to produce quads at a rapid rate and earlier as we see. With the ban likely coming to the end, Muravieva does probably see that her time at the top at the Russian senior national level is probably coming to an end, with a lot of these young women moving up into the senior competition. Additionally, the timeline of the ban has gone on for over 4 seasons at this point, and there is probably a lot less motivation intrinsically for her to be able to continue to do these domestic events and continue to put out high-level competitions and high-level skates without as much reward in an international competition. With the combination of the competition and the timeline of the ban, it seems like at this moment Muravieva kind of has a decision to make whether she's going to be content being able to stay within domestic competitions in Russia, maybe being able to get on a Grand Prix circuit here or there, and not making a world or a European team with the women that are moving up. Or she could try and look elsewhere, looking at the competition of France and the US, maybe not in the same level of depth as what we see in the Russian women. Looking at the two pathways that Muravieva has put out for herself at this current moment, between the US and France, there are two different factors that I think will be coming in to her decision. One, you have to think about the citizenship, and the citizenship requirements for both are definitely difficult, but if you look at the pathway through France, it is a little bit easier than what you look at within the US. With France, it typically will require 5+ years of residency and proof of integration within French culture, having French language proficiency, a knowledge of their history, the culture, basically having a holistic look within the country. Although the residency normally takes 5 years to get, this can be reduced to 2 years for individuals who have provided significant services to France within the sports performance factor. You also have to look at what happened this past season with Guillaume Cizeron and Laurence Fournier-Baudry. Laurence was able to get French citizenship within a whole year. Now, the next Olympics will be in France, in the French Alps. And Muravieva will be a very big, significant contributor to that French team and their pursuit of a team medal, hopefully. With that being said, I do think in the French Figure Skating Federation, it would be in their best interest to help push her citizenship to be expedited for them to be able to perform very well in their next Olympics, because as we do know, the French women have not been a beacon of hope for the past couple of seasons in the past and in recent history. Looking at the US, you have the Blade Angels, or the Big A, as we have seen the past season of Amber Glenn, Alyssa Liu, and Isabel Levito. If Muravieva did decide to switch to the US, as far as we know it at the current moment, the three of them do plan on continuing next season. It would be very difficult for her to come in and break up the mold of the three women that have been out there for the US going on over the past couple of seasons. That's not to say that she couldn't do that, but looking at the two pathways, I think France would be a much easier route for her to go if she wanted to make an immediate impact on the international level. Additionally, one important thing that we also need to note is within Russia, they actually have a 2-year period that they will hold onto their skaters in order to be transferred to another country. Famously, one of the skaters that has kind of endured that situation was Sofia Morva, who had to sit out for 2 seasons prior to her transfer to Kazakhstan. We've also seen Veronika Zhilina and her sister. They have also been repeatedly absent from Russian competitions over the past 2 to 3 seasons as they have been trying to transfer to Azerbaijan. So looking at Muravieva's situation, it will be interesting to see if she will be able to get a quick transfer or not. The Russian Federation might be able to hold on to her for a little bit of time in order to induce her maybe to stay within Russia, or also to hinder her and not allow her to compete internationally for whichever country that she chooses to, which would hinder her training, hinder her ability to be able to be at peak form when she's able to come back. And that would ultimately kind of be a detriment to whatever country that she looks to transfer, as they would not be able to have a quality skater within their program developing over the next quad. Within Russia, there's actually been a bit of a neutral-ish tone to the news of her wish to transfer. I would say neutral in the sense that I think there are some that are positive about her transfer to a different country, and some that I think are in the traditional stubborn Russian sense. You have people like Alexander Edinburgh, who is out there saying, don't call her a traitor, that she's looking for the best of her opportunities, then they're in the best interest of her career. And then you have individuals also like Elena Leonova, who say she will be missed, but then also kind of has a little bit of an undertone where she says there are other athletes, so that it's not that big of a loss. Same thing with Lekurnik. Alexander Lekurnik, who was a former, part of the Russian Federation, saying, the Russian national team will live on without Muravieva. She's not their number one girl. Even someone like Julin, who I think has a pretty good take from this, said that he believes that she was inspired by Sofia Morva, who did pretty much the same thing of what Muravieva is looking to do at this current moment. Samodokina was not the number one girl within Russia. She was kind of fighting on to make it within the top 5, and she was always kind of behind the Terry girls or the other women that Plishenko have been training. And, she was able to leave Russia and go to Kazakhstan and be able to place very well the past 2 seasons internationally. And Julin says that he believes that she was inspired by her and kind of wants the same for that as she nears the end of her career. And I think that was one of the big takeaways for me, is that I think there are supportive people within the country that understand that this is a situation where she wants to be able to compete internationally and isn't really going to be able to do that at the highest level at those Olympic and World Championships within Russia. And, there are some that I think maybe are a little too nationalistic and think that this is kind of a stab in the back for her to leave Russia and to move to a different country. And I think, it looks like when you have that, you have people like Tarasova saying that, Lakurnik, people that are kind of on the older end of the generations that I think are a little bit more nationalistic. Then you have people like Enbert and Leonova who are kind of more realist to the point that they think that this is a better opportunity for her and that this will work out for her in her favor as well and will kind of be a better life decision for her at this current situation. And as we kind of conclude this episode, I think the two things for me that are going to be the next key items for us to learn as we follow this situation are two questions. One, who will be the coach of Sofia Morva? She left Alexei Mishin. She was with Yevgeny Plushenko prior to this for a long time. Yevgeny Plushenko and Eteri Tuperidze also made an announcement in the news that they would not consider taking her on as a student at this time. Also, the second question is, where will we see her compete? Will she stay within Russia? Will she go to the US? Will she go to France? Will she go to another option that we don't even know, maybe is on the table at this point? My gut feeling is saying that we will see her in France. I think that would probably be the best decision for her and probably the easiest decision for her to slide in at the top level, depending on how long Russia will keep her. I think that is another thing that we have to be monitoring this at play. Will Russia keep her from being able to transfer, or will she be able to transfer at a easier pace than Sofia Samodokina? Looking at the coaching situation, will she be coached in Russia? Will she be coached outside of Russia? She's talked a lot about how she wants to work with Rafael Aratunian, but Rafael Aratunian is working with Sofia Samodokina. Would he want to take on a second student and have two rivaling students? We have seen him do that before with Ashley Wagner, Mariah Bell, and Sue Lim. He has also had Marin Honda. He coached Michelle Kwan. So he's had that rivalries and those groups that I think kind of motivate each other. So that could potentially be an option for her. If she does decide to switch to France, I think one of the big things that I would be looking out for would be if she would be competing and skating within the Benoit Rousseau camp. Benoit has kind of been trying to make himself more of a coach, manager, choreographer type of role within the sport with Adam Xiaohimfa. And he also has Cedric Tour, who kind of works on the technical aspect. Remember, he used to coach Brady Tennell back in the day and a couple seasons ago, and has also works with young French up-and-comer on the Junior Grand Prix. So Benoit Rousseau, I think is another one that we could be seeing Muravieva work with, and one of the ones that I would be looking at on the front line to see would be one of the top choices for her. So as we conclude this first edition of the summer series, keeping us up to date with all the news that's going on in figure skating, drop a comment below, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this situation, where you think Muravieva will end up. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Blades and Banter.